So in the previous episode, we saw the group entering this hotel to take out a devil that had potentially eaten some gun flesh, but once they get in there, they see that it's kind of just like this head with like feet hands, and it's quickly taken out. But then they realize that they can't leave. Like going up and down the steps isn't working, and they're kind of just stuck on the same floor. And that brings us to the beginning of this episode, where we see that, yeah, they're pretty much stuck on the 8th floor. No matter what they do, they just can't escape. Like I said, they can't go up and down the steps. The elevator isn't working. They can't go out of the windows. They can't even go through the ceiling. And another thing is that the clock is kind of stuck on 8:18 and it's not moving. So time isn't passing here either. So we see that they're pretty much stuck in like their very own little dimension. And Denji says to Power, like, maybe it's because of the devil you killed. He could have died while using the power to keep us trapped. And Aki says, no, a devil's powers are released when they die. It can't be that. So that's some confirmation there on how devil powers work at least. So then we see Kobeni starting to get more and more panicky and more unhinged. That's going to be like her role in this episode. And she gives us more insight into her, saying that like she was kind of forced into the public safety by her parents to make more money so that her brother can go to college, and she was actually the one that wanted to go to college too. But it's just telling us that like this is why Kobeni is so afraid and doesn't seem like she wants to be there or isn't really cut out for this. It's because she was kind of forced into this lifestyle. But considering what Himeno said in the previous episode about her being capable, she does have some kind of skills that we just haven't seen yet. So then they figured that there's not much else they can do besides investigate, so Denji decides to take a nap, and once he wakes up, Himeno kind of gives him an update on things, saying that the power and electricity are still working, and that they found some food left over by like previous guests, and this is going to be like their rations going forward because, you know, they don't have any food and there's no way to escape, and time doesn't pass either, so there's really going to be no help, so there's a good likelihood they'll eventually starve to death. But then she also gives an update on like Aki, saying that like he's obsessively investigating, trying to figure out what's going on. Rai had like a panic attack and he's like staying in another room, and Kobeni was trying to drink toilet water, so she knocked her out. And then she thinks that like Power is going crazy too, because she's like ranting about trying to get a Nobel Prize in order to become like the prime minister, and Denji's like, no, she's kind of just always that way. So then Himeno starts smoking, and she reveals that she is the one that introduced Aki to smoking. And then we go to this flashback of them on like this blimp, and this is obviously sometime after the flashback we saw in the previous episode of them like meeting for the first time. But she says to Aki like, hey, you joined the public safety because you want to kill the gun devil, right? And we found out in the previous episode that like, yeah, this is Aki's motivation and tragic backstory, because Aki did originally have a family. He had like a mom, a dad, and a brother, but when the gun devil first struck, I think it was like 13 years ago, his family was one of his first victims. Like he watched his entire house get blown away by the gun devil, and then that led him to becoming a devil hunter and joining the public safety, and that's like his main motivation going forward. It's like the only thing that he's really concerned about, if anything. And we're going to see later on in the episode how strong that conviction really is. And as the flashback goes on, we see them bonding more and more until they eventually until we eventually see them at dinner. And Himeno tells Aki that devils don't fear devil hunters that are like strong and brave, but they fear the ones that are basically crazy. And that's why she thinks that Aki will do well. But this is kind of important because this will be like a recurring thing kind of going forward, not only in this episode or this arc, but more so just like in the series. So then we come back to the present, and Aki comes to the hotel room and he says, hey, I've got bad news. Remember that devil that we just killed? Well, it grew bigger, and we see it like bust out of this room, and it's become like this massive amorphous flesh blob thing. And it starts talking to them, and it says, it's like, hey, I offer you a contract. Feed me Denji and I'll let all of you go. And Kobeni like comes out of the room with a knife saying, let it eat you, Denji. Because as we've seen, she's progressively getting more and more crazy because of the situation and how she's, you know, not meant for this job essentially. But Aki kicks the knife out of her hands, saving Denji. And this is actually going to be the first of 2 times that he's going to be saving Denji in this episode. Then Aki tries to use the Fox Devil on him, but he's unable to summon him because like the Fox Devil's in Kyoto and they're kind of stuck in this dimension here. But Himeno is able to use the Ghost Devil that she has a contract with. We saw that she can use its right hand in exchange for her right eye, and it like gouges like a hunk of flesh out of this devil, and it reacts badly to it, like audibly telling you that it hurts. So this is kind of like the main weakness of this devil, despite it saying that it has no weakness in this dimension. But then Denji's like, hey, you know, even if it eats me, it's probably just gonna kill you guys too. And then Himeno says, actually no, if a devil makes a contract with you, it has to go through with it. Like once both parties agree to it, if one of them break the contract, they'll die. So it turns out that they're like, yeah, there is some kind of like magic to this. It's kind of like, you know, a Nen contract in Hunter x Hunter, or like a binding vow in Jujutsu Kaisen. And of course, some of them want to agree to the contract here. Naki's like, no, you know, the devil wanting to kill Denji obviously means it would benefit it for some reason, so we can't allow that to happen. Also, you know, we're freaking devil hunters and we kill devils. So then some time passes and they're still trying to figure out what to do. And Aki says, you know, if we run out of options, I'll just use the sword. You know, the sword on his back. And Himeno's like, no, absolutely not. Like, she's so against Aki using it that if they really do run out of options, she'll just let Denji die instead. And later on in the episode, we find out that if Aki does use this sword, due to the contract that's on it, it would take a portion of Aki's life. And that's pretty much all the information we're getting on it, but there's some devilly work going on with this sword for sure. And it's so powerful that it would get the job done here, as they said, but it would like take some of Aki's life in exchange. So then we come back to Kobeni, who is still freaking out, of course, and she has the knife again. And now she's thinking that Arai is like working with the devil, thinking that he's like a traitor. And her increase in fear of the devil here is making it stronger, because we know that the more you fear a devil, the stronger it becomes. And this causes it to like start chasing Denji, Aki, and Himeno down the hallway. And it says like, I will be the one to kill Denji. I'll be the one to kill the chainsaw, the eternity devil. So that's like the reveal of what kind of devil this is, and totally makes sense because, you know, they're pretty much trapped in eternity here, like in this dimension, trapped on the 8th floor where time doesn't pass. And this is essentially like what the eternity devil's ability is, aside from being like this amorphous blob. But it's like nigh unbeatable for the most part. Like, you pretty much have to like make a contract with it to get out of here. So then the eternity devil like turns the hotel on its side and sits at the bottom of the hallway, like opening its mouth, saying like, hey guys, just give me Denji, let me eat him. And Aki's like, okay, we're out of options, I'm gonna use the sword. But then Himeno like stops him using the ghost devil. And then Arai and Kobeni come from behind Denji and they're about to kill him, you know, to feed him to the eternity devil. But Aki fights through the ghost devil holding him back and jumps in the way, taking the knife for Denji. This is like a huge moment here. And he says, you know, even though Denji is like a piece of crap and deserves being stabbed, you know, a time or two, he wants the gun devil dead, and I can't kill it by myself. So to do that, I need devil hunters with the guts to fight it, even if it costs some of my own life. And he's like, I'm not letting Denji die. So yeah, this is like an awesome moment. And what Aki is saying here is obviously true, but I do think there's more to it. Like, he does genuinely like Denji as well. I mean, most importantly, it's because, you know, he needs him to fight against the gun devil, but, you know, they have grown closer, you know, over the last couple days or weeks, however as much time has passed since they first moved in together. And it also goes back to what Himeno told him in that flashback about how devils fear the devil hunters with screw loose or crazy. Denji is obviously that. But that's not the only relationship we're seeing grow closer here, because Denji asks Power to like, hey, can you stop his bleeding, you know, since she's the blood devil? And she says, well, you know, I only have complete control over my own blood, but controlling others is a little challenging, but she can pretty much still do it. And she says, you know, I suppose I would need a new cook if Top Knot died. So it's like, yeah, Power has grown closer to not only Denji, but Aki as well. You know, them living together and spending more time. And while she does still have, you know, a lot of seriously sociopathic tendencies to her, as we've seen in this episode, I mean, she can't really help it. She's a freaking devil, you know, fiend. But she is gaining more empathy as time goes on and the closer that she gets to Denji and Aki. So then Denji's like, all right, fine, I'll do it. I'll jump into the eternity devil's mouth, but I'm not going to make it easy. And he figures that it's probably afraid of facing off against his chainsaws, considering that he wanted to make the contract for them to kill him and for them to feed Denji to him. And Himeno's like, do you have a plan? And he says, well, I remember when the ghost devil yanked out its flesh, it was crying out in pain. So I figure, you know, if I tear it up until it can't take the pain no more, then it'll want to kill itself. So that's like his plan here. He's going to just hack away at it using his chainsaws until it just basically taps out. But then he's like, you know, I can't believe you saved me, Aki. No one asked you to do that. I'm through with owing anybody anything. Got it? Of course, going back to the first episode about him owing the Yakuza due to his dad's debts. He's like, you know, once we get out of here, we're even. And then he jumps into the eternity devil's mouth after pulling his ripcord, and that's where the episode ends. And yeah, the next episode is definitely going to pick up with us seeing Denji take on the eternity devil, and it's going to be awesome. But that's pretty much it for this one. Let me know what you thought about this episode, guys, and if you liked the video, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.